Hello again, folks. Right, in the last episode with the BBC Master, we got it sort of up and running and did a bit of keyboard work to make the keyboard work. But one thing we didn't do is recap the power supply. And there's these little capacitors in here that are called reefers, and they have a horrible tendency to go bang and let all the smoke out. Never smoke the reefer. So the plan is to remove the power supply. I have purchased a capacitor replacement kit, so we'll go ahead and sort that lot out, and that should increase the longevity of the power supply. The other thing that we're going to do with today is play with floppy disks, truly genuine floppy disks, and a floppy drive system. First things first, we need to be able to remove the power supply. We're going to remove all of these connectors, the power supply connectors from the PCB here. Right then, let's remove these power supply connectors. A little bit of gentle wiggling. They're just spade terminals ultimately. This one's a female spade terminal, male spade terminal built into the PCB. And then flip the unit on its back. The power supply is over here, and we've got a few little screws that we need to pop out, so we'll just pop those out. As if by magic, ta-da! Out comes the power supply. Obviously, if you're going to work on something like this, clearly there are mains voltages involved, so either know what you're doing, get the appropriate training, or just make sure it's fully disconnected. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, maybe 5 screws to undo, and then we can pull the PCB out the bottom of this metal framework. So that's another thing I didn't realise, but on the side frame of this power supply here, it's got a 5-volt adjustment. So it might be worth having a quick check and make sure that we've got proper 5 volts coming out of this system. There we go, it's all starting to come out now. What I don't want to do is pull it all the way out, because it means I've got to disconnect loads of little grommets and connectors. So I'm going to leave all of these connectors in place and just try and work on it, because I can see the capacitors that I need to replace. One of them is right here. This guy here, this is a reefer, and you can actually see it's expanded to the point where it's now cracking some of the potting compound that it was potted in, and in fact also this reefer capacitor here is starting to crack as well. So yeah, it's a really good job we're doing this, and ultimately these guys are on the mains side of things as well, so when they go, they really go bang, and they smell a lot, and they create a lot of smoke. We have got here a 0.1 microfarad times 2, that's this guy here, and then here we have a 0.01 microfarad times 2. So those will go in place of those two guys. This guy here is a what? 220 microfarad 25 volt capacitor. There, yeah, there's a 25 volt capacitor just there behind that lot. So I'll get the soldering iron out anyway. This is the TS100 soldering iron, absolutely fantastic little sort of like 12 to 24 volt soldering iron, just little DC barrel jack plugs into it there. Absolutely wonderful bit of kit, love it to pieces. Heats up in an absolute instant and does a pretty damn good job of soldering normally. It depends on how many beers I've had the night before. Let's see if we can make headway on removing one of these. Get a little bit of solder on the tip first. There we go. Bit of solder on the tip, and there we go. One leg out. That was relatively easy. So this is the 0.1 microfarad reefer capacitor. There she is. Happy days. Oh my goodness. Yeah, I'll do a close-up of that in a second, but yeah, that's a right old mess, that is. So we're going to replace that with this, which is a Tenta, slightly more modern equivalent, and slightly different leg spacing, but not a big problem. Right, I just need to redo that hole. A bit of fresh solder on this guy down here. There we go. Cool. And obviously we need to make sure we chop those excessively lengthy legs off. So pair of snips. 1, 2, done. this 220 microfarad 25 volt electrolytic was a little bit more of a fiddle. One thing you have to note with these is they are polarity conscious, so make sure that assuming your power supply is oriented the same as mine, when you do this one, the negative terminal on this capacitor is on the left hand side. So when you put your replacement in, negative on the left. Right, that's going in right now. Another thing to watch out for, these grommets are an absolute pain in the arse to get in and out. I strongly recommend a massive pair of pliers and a good bit of brute force and ignorance. So now it's all back in its case, we should be able to switch it on, and fingers crossed it won't go bang. Let's see what happens. Oh, it's on, it didn't go bang. So let's quickly just check and see what we have coming out of these cables here. 5.01 volts, that'll do the trick. Nice. And let's check our other voltages. So here we get 5 volts as well, happy days. And it's quite possible for the sound, I think they need a slightly different voltage for the op amp. So let's just have a quick look at this guy here. That's 5 volts as well. And let's just go from ground to blue. Blue says minus 5 volts. Yeah, that's right. I mean, plus minus 5 volts. So ultimately, it's just a plus minus 5 volt power supply. But that's all looking pretty good. It's all nicely serviced now. So while I was in here, I found the original sticker that went over the window on this erasable ROM here. And it is indeed for a Plotmate A3 for a BBC Micro. So I believe that was an A3 printer, a pen up, pen down XY coordinate printer. So I've just put a little bit of double-sided sticky on that so that we can get that back in place. There we go. Happy days. Okay, let's put the lid on. So here it is. This is a floppy disk. This one's a little bit knackered. You can see it's a little broken. So I thought it would be a good opportunity perhaps for us to have a look inside a floppy disk. Why were they called floppies? I think it's quite plain to see why they were called floppies. Although that said, trying to do this with a 3.5-inch disc would be fun. But this is a 5.25-inch floppy disk, and yeah, it's sort of falling apart here. So so why don't we open it up? Oh my goodness, it is literally, it's so old, the plastic is just literally coming apart. But ultimately, inside here, if I just remove that extra bit of plastic, inside here is a magnetic piece of plastic. It's a piece of plastic that's had a magnetic film put on the surface on both sides. And actually, if I shine the light at it the right way, you'll probably notice there's a few dinks here. And I've already tried this floppy and it doesn't work. But ultimately, that there is a magnetic disc. And this is the very meager protection for that magnetic disc. It literally just comes in like a little envelope, and there's a little bit of cotton on the inside of here to stop things from rubbing. But yeah, so let's stuff that back in there. But we might even give it another try, actually. Shall we give it a try? Now we've pulled it apart and put our fingers all over it. Let's see how hard wearing these floppies are. It wasn't working beforehand, so I don't think it's going to work going forwards. The other thing with these floppy disks is if you cut out a corner of them, it would make them non-writable, so you could only read from them, if I'm not mistaken. I'll see if I can find another floppy that has that. Yes, I've got a decent floppy here, and the example is right here. There's a little, if I put a bit of paper behind that, you can see there that there's a little corner cut out there, and that makes the floppy read only. Cool. This is a double-sided, double density, I can't remember if it's a 40 or an 80 segment floppy disk, 5.25-inch floppy disk. Right, let's connect up that disk drive. This here then is an absolute beast. It's basically two floppy drives, a drive A and a drive B in the same case. And they're just magnificent lumps. Look at them, all plated through hole technology. No surface mount going on here at all. There's no switch mode in here. There's a transformer here and a little bit of smoothing and some rectification here. Proper old school power supply. And then we have a ribbon cable that connects to both floppies. And the ribbon cable then goes off to the connector on the underside of the BBC Micro. So we'll plug that into disk drive. There we go. All right, let's switch it all on. Right, everything looks like it's working. Let's get a floppy disk. Let's put that floppy disk in the floppy disk drive in place. Close the gate, and the gate actually drops the magnetic read head in place, as you can see there. And there we go, gate in place. And let's run the cat command. That catalogues what's on the disk. And boom, yes, we've got a list of things on the screen that are on the disk. So in here there's a boot command. So if I type, I think it's star boot. Interesting. Brilliant. Here we go. Check it out. We've got a games disc. Bug Eyes. Yeah, that was quite cool. Commando, Mousetrap. What we're going to play. It's all black and white, which is interesting to see. I wonder if that's a function of my monitor rather than the function of the BBC. But let's try Bug Eyes. Happy days. But as you can see, the disk drive's working and we're able to load games onto the BBC Master. This is looking really quite cool. Right, I'm going to have a bit of a dig through some discs and see if we can find some games to play. Piracy beyond belief. This one cracked by AWJ. Imagine? Question mark. Arkanoid. Happy days. This is Thrust. Cool. Right. What's the key to... There we go, got that. Ooh, that's going to shoot at me, so let's just... There we go, got that. And there we go, tractor beam. And I think we just sort of disappear off with that. We just run away with it. Haha! Mission 1 complete. Oh, yes. So I didn't realise this, but composite output on the BBC is actually black and white, as standard. So yeah, this is why we've got black and white, if anybody was interested to know. But ultimately, composite out on the BBC is black and white only. That's a bit of a shame, isn't it? Well, as always, folks, many thanks for watching the refurb on the old BBC Master 128 here. It was good fun to play with it, but it does sort of remind you of the limitations of what you used to have to do back in the day. Take care, folks. Have a fabulous week and weekend, and we'll see you in the next one. Cheers and beers. Bye for now. Oh, I remember this one. So, welcome to the game of Farmer. A farmer must cross a stream with his dog, a chicken, and a bag of grain. On crossing, the farmer must go to steer the boat, and he may take one other item with him. However, if left unguarded, then the chicken will eat the bag of grain and the dog will eat the chicken. The fewest number of crossings in both directions is 7. Crossing. Who will cross over? The farmer by himself? Well, there's not much point in that, is there? The dog won't eat the grain, so we take the chicken over first. Okay, so the farmer and the chicken go. Good. And as you can see, the little boat takes the... Right, so now the farmer needs to go back over, because there's no point in taking the chicken back. So if I take the dog over and then bring the chicken back... Okay, alright, so I'll take the dog over now. Farmer and the dog can go over together, because I'm with them, the dog won't eat the chicken. Right, okay, so now I need to take the chicken back with me, the farmer and the chicken, because otherwise the chicken will eat the dog will eat the chicken. Okay, and then if I take the grain over, so the farmer and the grain... Right, okay, right, the dog won't eat the grain, so the farmer by himself now pick up the chicken, so the farmer and the chicken now, and that should get us all across, and I think that should finish it. Well done, all crossed safely, took 7 crossings. Do you want another game? No, I think I figured that one out. Thanks very much.